You know, it's kind of funny. People were asking me to do the artist ever since I started doing this series, and everyone was saying, "Oh, the artist lore is so good. You're gonna love her." People were raving about her lore, about how it's so dark and it's so depressing and it's so well written. It makes you really feel sorry for her. It's really gripping. And so now we're finally going to talk about the artist. We're going to talk about her lore, her powers, her perks. So what do I think of it? Well, it's good. Partially. Maybe a little bad here and there. We'll get to it. Okay, let's break it down. First of all, before we get started, I do want to say I absolutely love the fact that she's kind of got a crow or raven thing going for her. Definitely, I mean, given my name and given my whole theme, I mean, I can't deny she's kind of got a special place in my heart for that reason. Her design's pretty cool. Her power's pretty cool. We'll get to all that, but just that raven aesthetic does do it for me. Okay, so let's get into her lore. Let's talk about it. So, her real name is Carmina Mora, a young girl from Chile who loved to draw. When she was young, her mother abandoned the family for reasons that we don't know and are never talked about, but the father sure took it out on her. She loved her little brother, Matthias. Matthias, I know I've heard that name before. Oh yeah, he was the bad guy from the first Tomb Raider game. I just thought about that. Anyway, she has a little brother named Matthias who she absolutely loves. And one day when she was outside with her father and brother, her little brother was out playing. She hears the phone ring inside. Daddy ain't moving to go get it, so she goes to go get it. And she goes in, picks up the phone. No one was there. She puts it back down, goes outside, only to find that Matthias had tripped, fallen into the creek, and drowned. Wow. That's a lot to happen in just a few seconds. Like, that kind of happened real quick. But you know what? Tragedies happen. So she's really upset. She's really sad that her brother is dead. And of course, her awful father takes it out on her because he blames her again, even though he, probably should have been watching Matthias to see and make sure he didn't do anything like that. But, bad fathers are bad fathers. With nothing left to live for and feeling alone in the world, she's ready to jump off a bridge and die. But she was stopped by the most unlikely of creatures. A hobbit. Bilbo Baggins of the... Oh, sorry, wrong script. She was actually stopped by a murder of crows. See, I didn't bring this up earlier, but when she was doing her painting and art, she would often bring breadcrumbs and feed the crows that came to watch her. And now they were invested in her survival. The crows cawed, croaked, and pulled on her, begging her not to jump, and, feeling like she wasn't so alone anymore, she decided to give life one more chance. The crows inspired Carmina to indulge in a different form of art, a little darker, literally, using inky black coloring and texture to create grim, dark, and eerie portraits. Her popularity as an artist began to grow over the years, and soon she was expanding her artistic abilities into the public sphere. She was even trying new forms of art, like poetry, just as unique and grandiose as her art was. Carmina had really turned her life around, and it was all thanks to the crows that gave her another chance. Just going to show that even a small, even minuscule act of kindness, like feeding the birds, thank you, Mary Poppins, can bring you just a little bit of joy and maybe help bring some glory back into your life. Really cool stuff. I like this. This is good. This is good lore writing. This is good story writing. She soon got so popular that she drew the attention of an international group known as the Vack label. Doing some research on them, she discovered that they... I don't want to paraphrase this. I need to read this verbatim. I'm actually going to pull up the lore itself and read it verbatim. Quote, discovering that they gifted art pieces to select disreputable congressmen, Vox commissioned artists seemed to disappear afterward. I'm very confused by this phrasing. So the Vack label commissions artists to make art for them. They gift these art pieces they commissioned to corrupt congressmen, and then they quietly kill the artists they commissioned. How does that... Why? Why? Just why? Why? I don't get this. But you know what? It doesn't stop there. Again, verbatim, I'm not going to paraphrase. I'm going to... Quote, determined to expose the group's link to corrupt politics, Carmina accepted Vack's commission. The following week, Carmina painted a giant mural on a cemetery's columbarium displaying the Vack label logo as a surrealist Grim Reaper harvesting the fields of Chilean families. She wore a theatrical dress as she painted, on which she had stitched a poem about political revolution. Look, I'm not against stories that have political messaging. Some of the most popular stories out there have some degree of social or political commentary. But this is so out of left field. Literally. We are hearing the story. We started off with the story of a little girl who lost her mother, then lost her brother, and felt like she was carrying all the blame, wanted to end her life, wanted to throw it all away, but was saved. She found unlikely salvation in the crows that she had shown kindness to. And through that act of kindness, she chose to reinvent herself. But then out of nowhere, literally out of nowhere, we get evil, corrupt politicians. We don't know what these politicians are doing bad. We don't know what their whole deal is. We don't know how they relate to her in any way. I mean, how does this even work? So, okay, let me see if I can break this down. So Vack Label commissions art from artists, as in they pay for the art, okay? Then they gift this art piece that they commission to corrupt politicians, so they're not selling it. So what are they getting out of it? What does Vack get out of gifting these politicians the art? What do they get out of it? Why do they do it? What's the gain? And why would the corrupt politicians want the art in the first place? Why would they ask for it? Is that something that just corrupt politicians want? Do you think that evil politicians are like Dr. Evil? They just steal things because they want to steal it? And then they make the artists they commission disappear. Again, why? Would that not draw attention to you? Doesn't it put you in a negative light to do that? Look, if it was easy enough to make a connection between the artist going missing and your organization, don't you think the police would be able to do the exact same thing that Carmina did? If Carmina could look you up online and go, oh wow, you make your people that you commission disappear, don't you think the police or Interpol could do that? I mean, Anyway, moving on from that. And then, no wait, I'm not done. Why would they accept commissions knowing that? Why did, when did Carmina show any kind of interest in political grandstanding for that matter? Why would she care? She accepts the commission. Why? For what end? When did she decide to be a Nia Carlson and stand up for political matters? When did she turn into a social justice advocate? What does politics have to do with her story? How is Vack Label oppressing the people of Chile by just gifting art that they paid for to whoever the fuck they choose? This not only feels out of place, it makes no sense. I'm sorry I'm getting hung up on this, but this is actually piss poor writing when compared to what we started with. But brace yourselves, guys. Brace yourselves. It gets worse. It turns out Carmina was getting death threats from her piece, so she tries to take refuge in her father's house along with some friends of hers. They proved little protection, though, as masked gunmen broke in, kidnapped her and her friends, and drove them out to a desert in the middle of nowhere. There, a man in a hood and cloak, chanting a strange and bizarre hymn in an unknown language, proceeded to take a silvery knife and cut off Carmina's hands and tongue, inquiring about how she would create art or poetry without them. Okay, so that would imply it's Vack Label doing this, right? But his behavior's a little odd. Why would Vack Label mutilate her that way? I mean, even without hands and a tongue, she could still incriminate you. And besides, wouldn't it look really bad if someone who just criticized you showed up mutilated like this? Wouldn't that draw all kinds of suspicion to you? That makes no effing sense. But moving on. In her pain, anguish, and loss, Carmina screamed horridly, and to her rescue came the crows. The massive murder of corvids descended on the cloaked man and tore him to pieces before their eyes. But the crows didn't stop there. They then attacked Carmina's friends, still tied up on the ground. Carmina tried to scream and beg the crows to stop, but they couldn't be controlled. And as she realized she was once again responsible for more death, just like her brother, the black fog took her to the realm of the entity, where he replaced her hands with inky black tendril claws. So, you might be wondering, what's wrong with that, Raven? What's wrong with that? Come on, that's not so bad. Oh, you're right. There's not much, except, who the hell were those people? I mean, like I said, it's hard to believe that Vack Label would be the ones behind this. I mean, sure, it makes sense because he does that taunting, how are you going to make art and poetry now? So yeah, that does feel personal since Vack Label was called out. But then, again, why risk that by doing that to her? I mean, I doubt they would just cut off Carmina's hands and tongue to make a point when she could very easily still identify them if left alive. Plus, it would destroy them publicly if the mutilated woman who they just mutilated tried to accuse them. So the only other option is if it's not Vack label, it's a servant of the entity, one of these dark cultists we've been learning about. And if that's true, why did he target Carmina? Why cut off her hands and tongue to keep her from making art again? Is there a personal reason? Why would he care about that? And if this is one of the cult, hold on, guys, hear me out. If this guy who did this is one of the cult, do you know what that means? That means that Vack label had nothing more to do with the story, meaning that whole subplot was entirely useless. This story had such good potential, only to be decimated in the second half. It's seriously like they hired another writer to finish her lore, and they butchered it. And you know what? To prove it, watch this. I'm going to give you 2 alternate endings that could go either way. I could give you 2 alternate ways to approach this. Number 1, make it that her mother didn't just walk out on the family. Make it that she was actually an artist commissioned by Vack. You could make it that the mother was the one who encouraged Carmina to become an artist, but then she went missing because she got hired by Vack, and Vack ended up killing her for whatever reason. And then you could have it where she grows up, finds out about Vack, wants to expose them. It doesn't have to be political; it could be personal. Have her try to expose Vack, only for Vack to turn around, find out what she's up to, and kill her. Then the entity gets revenge for her and drags her off to his realm. That's one way. The second way you could do it. The second way is have it where it is a cult of the entity. Remove the Vack angle altogether. Remove Vack altogether from this. Make it so that after she starts painting with the crow's help, like when she starts painting her stuff, it's a little bit weird. It's different because, get this, maybe the crows aren't real crows. Maybe they are emissaries of the entity. They are the entity's will made manifest. And so through her art, she starts creating these images, these symbols, these things that praise the entity, that give power to the entity. The cult finds out about her. They assume that the entity is targeting her, so they want to target her, but then the entity sends his crows to save her and drag her off to his realm. There, see? 2 ways you could have done this that still tie into her original lore and make it sound, and give a good reason for why all the bad stuff happened to her without adding pointless political nonsense that has nothing to do with her story, without any confusing discrepancies between who's the one who did it. Was it Vack label or was it a cult? Because get this, guys, if it was a cultist, the Vack label thing had no purpose. And if it was Vack label, then why on earth would they risk exposure by mutilating a woman who criticized them? Oh, this was bad. This was bad. But okay. I'll stop now. Let's get on to the stuff you actually care about, her power. The artist's power is Birds of Torment. At the start of the trial, this power has 3 tokens on it. Holding down the power button allows you to see a potential flight path, and then releasing the button allows you to spend a token and summon a stationary black dire crow. The crow will float in place, facing the flight path chosen. Press the button again to send more tokens and summon more crows to do the same thing. The crows will stay this way for 10 seconds before dissolving, and the timer is reset each time a new crow is summoned. If a survivor comes in contact with a dire crow, they take damage, but the crow will dissolve instantly. Now, at any point, the artist can press the secondary power button to launch the dire crow on their given flight path. If the dire crow hits a survivor within 7.5 meters of them, they will do damage to the survivor. Once the dire crow goes beyond the 7.5 meter limit or comes in contact with an object, the crow will turn into a swarm. The swarm will not harm a survivor it hits. However, any survivor close to the swarm will have killer instinct active on them for 3 seconds, and if a survivor is hit by the swarm will attack them. The artist can see the aura of a swarm at all times, and thus will be able to see a survivor being attacked by them. Now, the survivor can perform the repel action to try and shoo away the swarm, which will hide the aura from the killer, but will prevent them from interacting with anything else in the environment, which means they can't fix generators, heal each other, or anything like that. If the survivor is hit by another swarm while being swarmed, they will take damage. It takes a survivor 8 seconds to repel a swarm, or they can hide in a locker to remove the swarm immediately. I think the power is pretty cool. I just have a lot of trouble making it work for me. The best way I would consider using her power is summon up some crows at the very start of the trial and aim them at generators far away from you and launch them. If there's a survivor working on the generator, the crows will hit the survivor and you'll see where they are. The survivor will probably give up working on the generator because they know you're coming and they'll run away, in which case you can chase after them and start a chase, or they'll throw caution to the wind and try to keep working on the generator. So that's how her power works. It's pretty neat. I just have trouble making it work. Now, on to her perks. She actually has some pretty damn good perks. The artist has Grim Embrace, Hex Pentimento, and Scourge Hook Pain Resonance. Now, Grim Embrace is a great anti-gen perk, and I love running this on my killer builds. Each time a survivor is hooked for the first time, this perk gains a token and will activate when you get 16 meters away from the hook. At 1 to 3 tokens, all generators are blocked by the entity for 10 seconds. But once you get 4 tokens, all generators are blocked for 40 seconds. This is a fantastic perk to stop gen rushing and also divide survivor attention. I adore it. Great perk to run. Next is Hex Pentimento, a decent Hex perk that is good to run with other Hex perks, as it is only useful if survivors are cleansing totems. You have the ability to see all cleansed totems in the trial. You can approach a cleansed totem and rebuild it again as a rekindled totem. For each rekindled totem in the trial, you gain benefits. At 1 totem, survivor repair speed is regressed by 30%. At 2 totems, all regresses healing speed for 30%. 3 totems regresses recovery speed on the ground by 30%. 4 totems regresses the exit gate opening speed by 30%. And once you get 5 totems, all totems are permanently blocked by the entity, ensuring that there's no one doing the damage that you've done. Getting to all 5 at once is nigh impossible, as they'll be far easier to find and deal with, but just getting even 1 or 2 totems active at once is going to be really helpful for you in the trial. What I think is a really cool way to use this perk is just you run one other Hex perk, the survivors will run and cleanse it, and even if they cleanse it, you can just walk over, rebuild it as a Pentimento perk, and go ahead and start your boons happening and their Hex happening. I think that's a great way to use it. And then finally, Scourge Hook Pain Resonance. I actually find this Scourge Hook to be a bit weaker than the others I've played with because it's limited, but it is useful for gen control. At the start of the trial, 4 hooks are treated as Scourge Hooks, and you can see their auras in white. You also have 4 tokens on this perk at the start of the trial. Each time a survivor is hooked on a Scourge Hook, you spend 1 token, which activates the effects of the perk. The generator with the most progression immediately explodes, losing 20% progression immediately. All survivors who are working on that generator will scream, but not give away their location. This can only happen 4 times though, so it may be wise to use this perk in the mid to late game when the last generators are being worked on to buy you more time to find survivors. I personally do like this perk, it's good, but there are other Scourge hooks that work a little bit better, like the Onryo's perks, for example. Overall, I'll say this about the artist. Design-wise, awesome. Power-wise, really cool. Perks, great. Lore, starts off great. Her lore starts off really, really good. But then it takes a sharp left turn off of a ditch. I mean, it actually blew my mind just how off the rails the lore went suddenly. I was really invested in it until it got to that point. Then I was like, wow, this came out of nowhere. But what do you guys think? I know that my voice sounds really bad today, guys. I've got something going on with my throat. I apologize for that. But hey, considering the way the artist croaks and caws at everything, maybe that's fitting. Maybe I need to do this more often. Anyway, guys, thank you so much. Next time we'll go into the survivor that came out with the artist, Jonah Vasquez, and I will see you next time in the fog. Take care.